They didn't just use my name, they signed it while I was unconscious in the hospital. For a house. For my sister's wedding. Hi, I'm Lena Whitlow. I spent years being the reliable one, the strong one, the one who didn't need much. Turns out, that was just code for, you'll survive whatever we do to you. Have you ever been the family's safety net until they turned it into a noose? Tell me, what would you do if your parents mortgaged your future like it belonged to them? Let's go back to the morning the bank called, and I realized my name was no longer mine. I never answer calls from unknown numbers. It was a rule that kept me sane, no surprises before coffee. But that morning I broke it. Maybe because something in the air already felt wrong, like the weight of a storm waiting just outside the window. Ms. Lena Whitlow, the voice said, neutral and professional. Yes, I replied, already wary. This is Brian White from Liberty National Bank. We're contacting you regarding the past due balance on your mortgage, loan account ending in 2908. I blinked. I don't have a mortgage. The voice didn't falter. The loan was issued under your name and social security number 3 years ago. Amount, $800,000. I laughed, dry, confused. That's not possible. I've never bought property. I rent. We've sent several notices to your address, he continued, unfazed. Would you like us to forward a digital copy of the signed contract? I hung up, not because I had the answer, but because I didn't. For a while, I just stood there holding the phone like it had burned me. The kettle behind me was screaming. My coffee mug, a chipped thing from a forgotten office party, read, I'm not a morning person. I'm barely a person. The irony almost made me laugh again. But nothing about this was funny. I pulled open the drawer beneath my kitchen counter, the one full of bills, tax forms, insurance junk. It wasn't organization. It was control, or the illusion of it. At the very bottom, half buried beneath an expired AAA card and a grocery list, was a flyer. Generic logo. Liberty National Bank. My name typed neatly on the envelope. 6 months old. Unopened. It hadn't meant anything back then. Now it felt radioactive. I yanked the plastic storage bin from beneath my bed, scattering old folders like debris in a storm. Family documents, it said on one of them. I opened it. FAFSA cosign for Mason. Insurance authorizations for Mom's hip replacement. Power of attorney from when Dad was recovering from surgery. My name on everything. Everywhere. That's when it hit me. 3 years ago was when Mason and Alana started house hunting. I remembered Thanksgiving. Mom had said it with a smile. Don't worry. Family always finds a way. I thought she meant helping with the down payment. Turns out she meant sacrificing me. That evening I called her. She picked up on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Sweetheart, did you get the roast I dropped off? I did, I said flat. Quick question, Mom. Why is there a mortgage in my name with Liberty National Bank? Silence. Just long enough to confirm everything. Oh, that. Her tone was airy. It's just paperwork. Mason needed help qualifying. You weren't using your credit, right? I sat up straighter. You signed for a house using my name? You always overreact, she said, like I'd asked why she bought the wrong cereal. Mason deserves a future, Lena. You know how much pressure he's under. You think he deserves a future built on fraud? Look, honey, she sighed. You don't even have a family. Mason's starting one. I hung up, not because I was angry, but because I finally understood. They never saw me as a person, only as paperwork. That night, I couldn't sleep. My ceiling spun above me like some cruel carousel of every moment I'd ever been asked to help, pitch in, or understand. When Mason crashed his car at 15, Dad blamed the weather. When I scratched a fender 2 years later, I was grounded and billed. When Mason dropped out of community college, twice, Mom said, he's just finding his path. When I got a full scholarship to Boulder, she warned me not to brag. He's sensitive, she said. When I worked 3 jobs to pay off student loans, Mason got the new iPhone. When I didn't complain, they called me strong. Turns out strong was code for, you'll survive whatever we do to you. The next morning, I didn't shower. Didn't eat. I opened my laptop and stared at the PDF from Liberty National. Every page made me colder. My signature was there. My name. My social security number. But the L in my signature didn't loop. Mine always did. The W in Whitlow was too sharp. Too rushed. Not mine. And then there it was at the bottom. Notary, Kendra Mays. We went to high school together. She'd had a baby young. Certified in something admin-related. Stayed local. I found her on Facebook. Profile picture. Her and her daughter, balloon in hand. I messaged her. Hi, Kendra. Did you notarize a mortgage under my name for Liberty National Bank? An hour later, she replied. Yeah, your mom said you were sick. Urgent paperwork. You couldn't make it in. She was really upset. I thought I was helping. I'm so sorry if something was wrong. I read it twice. Then once more. No malice. Just another person who believed my mother's version of me. Invisible. Silent. Convenient. I cracked open my window and breathed the cold air like it was antidote. Outside, a dog barked. A car rolled by. The world kept turning like it hadn't just betrayed me. But it had. And it was just getting started. There was only one time in my adult life when I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't sign my own name. 6 months ago. Shellfish at a corporate mixer. I didn't even eat it on purpose, some cross-contaminated salad dressing, maybe. My throat swelled shut before I could ask for help. I remembered flashes. Paramedics above me. The ceiling light of the ER, the sound of a heart monitor going wild. And then, nothing. For 12 hours, I was unconscious. I'd thought the most humiliating part of that night was needing my mother to pick me up in a hospital gown. I was wrong. Now I had a mortgage tied to my name, signed the same day I was in the ICU. I sat at my kitchen table, fingers ice cold despite the Denver summer, and stared at the contract on my screen. Page 4. The signature. Lena R. Whitlow. The curl on the L looked right. The W not so much. I printed it out and held it next to one of my old W-2 forms. Not identical. Close. Practiced. But not mine. Before I could lose courage, I called the hospital. Hi, this is Lena Whitlow, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I was admitted to your ER on October 12th of last year. I'm organizing my health records. Could I get information about who signed my intake paperwork? After some bouncing between departments, I landed with Trina in patient records. She sounded like someone who'd seen too much. Let me pull that up, she said, clicking keys. Okay, looks like your intake paperwork was signed by a relative. A woman, Patricia Whitlow. My mother. Silence. Then she asked gently, is there an issue? Was I conscious? Another pause. Nurse logs show you arrived at 2:12 p.m. You were intubated by 2:29. No interaction from you post-arrival. There's also hallway camera footage. Would you like us to pull it? Yes, I said quickly. Please. I need that footage. She promised to call back. To stay occupied, I walked to the cabinet above the fridge where I stored all my archived mail. I pulled out an old manila folder labeled Medical, ER. Inside was a photocopy of the bill from that visit, $9,632.47. In the corner, in sloppy ballpoint ink, was a note in Mom's handwriting. Keep for taxes. The same ink, same pressure, same self-assurance I saw on the mortgage PDF. While I waited, I opened Facebook and searched for the name I'd been avoiding, Kendra Mays. We went to high school together, sat 2 lockers apart, laughed once in gym class. She wasn't cruel, just forgettable in the way small-town girls often are. Now her name was stamped on a fraudulent $800,000 mortgage. Her profile popped up fast. Still used the photo from her daughter's first birthday, hair tied back, cupcake on her cheek. I didn't hesitate. Hi, Kendra. This is Lena Whitlow. Quick question. Did you notarize a mortgage under my name a few years ago with Liberty National Bank? 10 minutes passed. Then an hour. I didn't move from my seat. The fan in my kitchen clicked every 7 seconds. The paint on the ceiling above me had begun to peel. I stared at the way it cracked into fine lines, like a web holding something broken together. Then a buzz. Hey, Lena, oh God. Yes. Your mom said you were sick. She said you couldn't come in. It was urgent. I swear I thought she was doing the right thing. Is something wrong? Is something wrong? I stared at that message until the letters blurred. My mouth felt full of metal. A thud outside startled me. The wind had knocked over the garbage bin. A neighborhood cat darted past. The normalcy of it all infuriated me. The hospital called back 2 hours later. Trina's voice had changed. Softer. There's footage from a hallway, she said. You were wheeled in at 2:13. At 2:47, your mother enters your room. You don't move the entire clip. And the mortgage was signed at 3:11. Yes. I sat very still. A plane passed overhead, low, loud, forgettable, just background noise. But my name, my signature, my debt? That wasn't background. That was foreground. I printed out the timestamp, highlighted it, scanned it, filed it. I stared at the contract again. My name, my stolen presence. And I thought of Kendra stamping that page, thinking she was doing the right thing. I messaged her again. I know you didn't mean harm, but what you did helped destroy my credit, my legal standing, and my name. I'm handling it now, but you should be aware. She replied fast. Lena, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Please let me help. Anything. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I had no room left for sympathy. That night, I pulled out the yellow legal pad I'd started 2 days earlier. I added a new line. Forged signature while sedated in ER, timestamped 3:11 p.m. Underneath it, in smaller handwriting, witness, Kendra Mays, notary. Before closing it, I underlined the date twice. Then I walked to the bathroom and washed my hands. They smelled faintly of ink and toner. As I dried them, I caught my own reflection. Still, pale, focused. The girl in the mirror didn't look afraid. She looked ready. The wedding invitation arrived in an envelope addressed to Mason Whitlow and guest. Guest. No name. No identity. Just an extra body attached to my brother like a grocery store coupon. I stared at the gold foil letters, then flipped the card over as if maybe, just maybe, my name would be hidden inside, like a secret. It wasn't. There was nothing. No, dear Lena. No mention at all. Mason's fiancée, Alana, had sent me Pinterest links and cake samples 2 weeks earlier. You're totally part of the vision, she'd said with her too white smile. I hadn't replied. I knew now what part one played. The invisible one. The expendable one. The one whose name was useful on paper, but not on invitations. That Sunday, I drove to my parents' house in Centennial. The same gray sedan in the driveway. The same lemon-scented floor cleaner trailing into the hallway like a welcome mat scrubbed too hard. The wind chime above the porch clinked, a little offbeat. A low winter sun made the windows glare like interrogation lamps. Donna opened the door, bright as always. "Well, look who decided to join us." She said it like I'd simply been away on vacation. Like she hadn't committed legal fraud in my name. Inside, the dining room gleamed too much. Polished oak table. China that only came out for holidays. A new centerpiece of artificial roses in pastel peach and gold, wedding colors. The roast beef smelled overcooked. The potatoes looked watery. But no one seemed to notice. Or care. Glenn offered a grunt from the table. Mason stood confidently behind a row of wine glasses, spinning the stem like a sommelier. Alana floated in wearing a white floral sundress and perfect foundation, her voice syrupy. "Lena," she chirped. "We were just talking about the wedding menu. Wait till you see the Pinterest board." I didn't smile, didn't hug, just walked to the table and sat down. My chair, I noticed, had been moved. No longer on the right of Mason, now next to the wall. The food was hot, but the conversation was frigid. Donna asked if I still worked that admin thing with contracts. Glenn nodded like that was a safe lane. Mason joked about the wine's notes. Alana showed a photo of a 3-tier cake. I watched her thumb move quickly on the screen, deleting photo after photo from her phone. One of them, clearly, was of me. Then I cleared my throat. "Have the invitations gone out?" I asked casually. Alana blinked. "Of course. Didn't you get yours?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. Placed it beside my plate. Gold lettering. Mason Whitlow and guest. Donna's smile faltered. "Oh, honey, that must have been a mix-up. You know you're invited." I said, tapping the card. "You sent one to Cousin Tara's cat, but not me." No one laughed. I opened my purse again and pulled out a photo, an old family portrait from Thanksgiving 2 years ago. There I was, standing between Glenn and Mason, wearing my burnt orange sweater. Then I placed a second print beside it, the one from last year's holiday card. Same background, same people, except this time I'd been cropped out. Literally. They hadn't even used a different photo. Just removed me like a smudge on glass. Silence coated the room like dust. I watched as realization hit each face. Donna's lipstick smile twitching. Glenn's fork pausing midair. Alana's gloss lips parting, unsure what expression was appropriate. A soft voice broke the tension. A child's voice, from the hallway. "Mommy, who's that lady?" A little girl, probably a neighbor's kid, peeked around the corner. Her mother shushed her and quickly pulled her away. No one answered her. Not even me. "Mistakes happen," Glenn mumbled, staring down. "No," I said. "Mistakes are typos. This is a revision." Alana tried to salvage the moment. "We just didn't have room on the layout." I cut her off. "Don't lie in a dress that white." Mason finally looked up, confused and defensive. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" I stared at him, dead in the eye. "You used my name, my credit, my signature, and now you're erasing me from photos and guest lists? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Like the more you gave, the more they edited you out? If you've ever been treated like a placeholder instead of a person, drop a comment number 7 below. Now let's see how much further they go." Donna exhaled loudly. "We just want to move forward, Lena." I nodded slowly. "Then stop pretending I'm the one holding you back." A beat. Then nothing. No one touched their food. The wind outside knocked something metallic off the porch. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a soft scrape. Its sound against the tile was sharp, like a blade being drawn. On the way to the door, I paused near the kitchen. Above the sink, embroidered on a decorative towel, hung the phrase, "Family is forever." I didn't even smirk. "Thanks for dinner," I said, turning back once. Next time you write me out of the picture, don't bother mailing the evidence. I walked out, didn't slam the door, didn't turn back, but I felt something settle inside me.
Cold. Solid.
Unmovable. Later that night, I went outside to check my car. The wind had picked up. A crumpled paper flapped against the windshield like it didn't want to be found. A sticky note. 2 words, scratched in jagged black ink. Back off. I didn't tear it down right away. I just stood there. Let the air sting my face. Let the silence wrap around me. Then I peeled the note off gently, folded it once, and slid it into the glove compartment. Evidence. They used my name like a tool. A spare key. A fallback plan. Now, I was going to make it the lock. It started with Marcy Tran, an old contact from a temp agency job years back. She'd gone full-time at a mid-sized law firm that specialized in financial fraud. I still had her number saved as Marcy, paper genius. I texted her. Need legal eyes. Family-level mess. Fraud confirmed. You available? She replied in under 10 seconds. Always. Bring everything. Her office smelled like toner, burnt coffee, and resolve. No plants. No soft chairs. Just files, fax, and fluorescent light that didn't blink. I laid out everything. The forged mortgage, the notary's admission, the hospital timestamps, even the sticky note someone left on my car windshield. Marcy listened, eyes scanning pages like she was hunting pressure points. This, she finally said, tapping the timestamp, is more than theft. It's systemic.
Patterned.
Power of attorney abuse masked as family loyalty. Can I sue? You can do better, she said, straightening her spine. You can own them. From that moment, everything moved fast. 3 days later, we filed a silent bid through a financial group that had been acquiring distressed mortgage portfolios, including those from Liberty National. If approved, the loan tied to my name, the very one they'd forged, would become mine legally. A week after that, I was walking into the Liberty National Loan Asset Office. I wore all black. Not for drama, for clarity. Wool coat, matte boots, hair tied back. My power uniform. The security guard glanced at my badge, then double-took. The elevator ride up was slow. Not metaphorically, physically slow. Like the building was testing if I really wanted to be here. When the doors opened, I was greeted by a wall of glass etched with the words, Asset Control. For a second, I saw my own reflection in the glass. Centered. Still. Control. The meeting room was colder than it needed to be. The fluorescent light buzzed. A VP entered with 2 assistants. You're Lena Whitlow? Yes. You're here representing? Myself. Through Lena Whitlow Holdings, LLC. There was a pause. Forgive me, but the primary debtor is my brother, I finished. And the mortgage was obtained through fraud. I slid the file across the table. Hospital logs. Video frame captures. Forensic signature analysis. A notarized affidavit from Kendra. A sworn statement from Trina. The VP read for a long time. He didn't argue. He just nodded and slid a contract toward me. I signed it using a metal Montblanc pen Marcy lent me. It clicked loudly on the glass table. A satisfying, final sound. With that click, I became the legal owner of a home I'd never stepped foot inside. They handed me a black folio with gold trim. The deed. The debt. The power. That night, I didn't go out. I didn't toast. I drafted a letter.
It read,
To Mason Whitlow, Alana Shore. Property at 921 Marigold Lane. Effective immediately, the property's mortgage is owned by Lena Whitlow Holdings, LLC. Per non-payment clause 4.2, You are required to vacate the premises within 30 days. Sincerely, ownership. I read it twice. It felt cold. But then again, so was the silence when they erased me. The next morning, I stood by the window in my apartment, watching early traffic blur under an overcast sky. My phone felt warm in my hand as it rang.
Donna.
I answered.
Lena.
Sweetheart, how or why? I bought the mortgage.
Pause. What?
I own the house now. Legally. Entirely. You're bluffing. I'm forwarding you the contract now. The silence that followed was long enough to feel intentional. Lena, she said, finally, voice lower. Don't do this. You already did, I replied, and I ended the call. Later that afternoon, Mason called. I let it go to voicemail. He left 6 messages. Alana left 8. They blurred together, rage, bargaining, blame, fake apologies. Around midnight, I turned my phone back on. Alana's text glowed at the top. What the hell did you do? We're getting mail with your company's name on our door. I replied, not our door. Not anymore. Then I locked my phone, placed its screen down, and sat in the dark. Outside, the streetlight flickered. Inside, I opened the folio again, touched the embossed seal. They used my name like it belonged to them. Now it belonged to me. They turned a house into a wedding showroom. White tents lined the backyard like fabric ghosts. A string quartet rehearsed under patio lights. Tables were covered in blush linen and glassware so polished I could see my own contempt reflected in them. And yet, they hadn't paid a single cent of the mortgage for 3 months.
I didn't need to sneak in.
I had the legal right to walk through the front door. But I didn't. I waited. I watched. I let them have their last curated lie. I sat across the street in my car with the windows rolled up, a folder on my lap, and coffee going cold in the cup holder. My heart beat slow, heavy, but steady. It wasn't nerves. It was readiness. At exactly 2 p.m., I stepped out. I wore a charcoal blazer and low heels. No makeup. Hair slicked back. A clipboard under one arm and 2 uniformed reps from the bank behind me. HOA's legal liaison arrived moments later. The light had begun to tilt orange, early spring shadows stretching long across the lawn. Everything looked golden. Fake golden. The timing was deliberate. Because timing, like silence, is power. The moment I stepped onto the grass, the quartet faltered. A note broke mid-bow and someone whispered, "What's going on?" Phones turned subtly. A waiter paused, champagne flute still in hand. I walked straight toward the arch Alana was posing, her back slightly arched, bouquet angled for symmetry. She turned and froze. Her smile flickered like a faulty bulb. Mason stood next to her in a pale gray suit and pink tie. He blinked.
Once. Twice.
Then stepped forward. "You don't belong here." I lifted the clipboard. "I do now." Alana's voice cracked. "What is this?" "A formal enforcement of legal notice. Your 30 days expired yesterday. You're in violation of your occupancy terms. I've come to collect." "You're evicting your own family?" Mason hissed. I nodded once. "I'm reclaiming what you stole. Have you ever been pushed aside until they needed you again? That moment you stopped being the backup plan and became the final answer? If you've ever taken back your power after being used, leave a comment number 9 below. Now, let's watch what happens when justice shows up in heels." Someone in the crowd gasped. The quartet stopped entirely now. One violin dangled at a musician's side. A guest with a baby blue fascinator whispered, "Is that his sister?" and began recording discreetly with her phone. I handed the folder to the HOA liaison, who stepped onto a small wooden platform and read it into a portable speaker. His voice was too clear. Too loud. echoing off the rows of crystal. By the time he said unauthorized occupancy and title misrepresentation, the entire patio was holding its breath. Donna burst out from the house, apron still on, hair pinned for a party. Her cheeks were blotched red, but her lipstick remained perfect, too perfect. She looked older in the daylight, the kind of tired you can't conceal behind lemon-scented polish and Facebook optimism. "Lena, please. Don't do this here." "You did," I said. "Every time you signed my name without my consent, every time you pretended I didn't exist except on paper, you brought us to this exact moment." Glenn stood behind her, arms folded. He didn't say anything. He never did. Alana lunged forward, trying to snatch the documents. The bank rep stepped in, blocking her smoothly. "This is our home," she shouted. "We put our savings into this." I stared at her. She was shaking now, not from cold, but from disbelief. "You put my name on a lie. Now you'll sign your own." A large moving truck turned the corner and pulled into the driveway. The rumble of the engine seemed to crack the silence. Someone muttered, "Oh wow," from the crowd. One of the bank reps stepped forward and handed Mason the final notice. "You have 24 hours to vacate." Donna's voice wobbled. "Can't we just talk?"
"You've had years," I said.
"You used every one of them to talk over me." A neighbor behind the hedge leaned closer to whisper. It was only a matter of time. Another, 2 chairs down, held her phone horizontally, filming. She whispered to her husband, "You seeing this? It's like a damn movie." I turned to Mason one last time. "You called me dramatic for asking questions. You called me selfish for saying no. You called me bitter for not smiling while being used." He said nothing, so I said it for him. "You never called me sister." Behind me, the wind picked up. One of the tents flapped open at the seam. A napkin took flight across the grass like a warning. I walked back across the lawn, past the string lights, the floral arch, and a cake no one would cut. Behind me, their perfect party unraveled. Not in screams or tears, but in silence. The kind that doesn't pass. That night, I reheated leftovers in my apartment and ignored 3 missed calls. I kept the lights low, kept the windows closed. Not for safety.
For peace.
Until my phone buzzed. A message from Donna. "Lena, your brother's not well.
He's not handling this."
I stared at the text for a long time, then typed. For the first time, "That's not my problem." And I turned the phone off. There wasn't a moment of victory. No sudden swell of music. No high five. No triumphant montage. Just stillness. The kind of silence that follows something enormous. Not relief. Just air that finally has room to exist again. After the eviction, the world didn't celebrate with me. There were no headlines. No group texts. No shared posts. Just a worn-out woman standing in her own apartment, holding a phone that had finally stopped ringing. I didn't reply to Donna's last message. I didn't check if Mason had moved out. I didn't need to. My name was clean. That was enough.
For now.
I started going through old files, boxes from college, work, hospital bills, even high school transcripts. I shredded what didn't serve me, labeled what I wanted to keep. And then, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. My grandmother's letters. She used to write in cursive that leaned right, delicate but never unsure. One of the envelopes was thinner than the rest. Dated years ago. Addressed to me. I'd never opened it. Inside. Only 1 page. They did this to me too once. Your mother and her sister. Don't let them define you, darling. Take your name back. My hands trembled. Not from sadness. From recognition. She had warned me. Not directly. Not loudly. just enough for a future version of me to understand. And now I did. The next week, I took a few vacation days. Not for travel. For clarity. I rented a tiny cabin near Pike National Forest. No Wi-Fi. No reception. Just trees and cold air and the sound of wind through pine needles. I brought only 2 bags, clothes and a stack of unfinished clay mugs I'd started throwing months ago but never glazed. Each night, I sat by the small wood stove with a cup of tea and rewrote what peace meant. It didn't mean forgiveness. It meant finally not needing to be angry to feel strong. By the 3rd day, I drove back into town and stopped by a weekend artisan market near Boulder. A friend of a friend had a table open. I asked if I could join. She smiled and moved her earrings aside. I lined up the mugs I'd finished glazing the week before. They weren't perfect. Some were crooked, a few too heavy on one side. But they were mine. Every bend, every imperfection. One mug had a word etched into the glaze. Reclamation. A woman with gray-streaked hair picked it up. She smiled at the weight of it in her palm. "Why that word?" she asked. I paused, then smiled. Because it wasn't supposed to exist. But it does. She bought 2. That night, I returned to Denver. My apartment felt smaller somehow.
But not in a bad way. Just more mine.
I made tea, sat on the floor, looked at my walls, now filled with art I liked, not gifts I was guilted into keeping. No family portraits, just one photo on the shelf, me at age 10, holding a frog and laughing. Hair wild, face unguarded. I left the eviction folder untouched in the drawer. I didn't need to reopen it. The doorbell rang 2 days later. Unexpected. I checked the peephole, Donna. I didn't open the door, but I listened. She stood there, hands clasped, shoulders stooped. "I just came to say," she began, voice soft, "that we didn't realize what we were doing, what it meant." Silence. "You were always so strong, Lena. We thought you didn't need." She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't know how. After a long pause, she slipped an envelope under the door. Then left. I opened it later. Inside was a single photo, the family picture from Thanksgiving 2022. This time, I hadn't been cropped out, but also tucked behind it. The cropped version. The one without me. I stared at both for a long time, then threw the cropped one away. That night, I lit a candle and held the full photo under the warm light. Not because I forgave them, but because I forgave myself for staying quiet so long. I took a photo of that photo and texted it to Kendra. She replied with a single emoji, fire. The next morning, I walked to a local registry office and changed my name back to just Lena Whitlow. No cosigner. No secondary guardian. No family contact.
Just me.
Then I stopped by my favorite cafe. Ordered my usual. The barista, new, asked, "Name for the order?" I said it clearly. Lena. She spelled it wrong. I didn't correct her. Because that's the thing about reclamation. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. I no longer have to prove anything to anyone. I live in the quiet I chose, carrying my name, whole, unborrowed, and debt-free. People may use family as an excuse to take, but no one has the right to treat sacrifice as an obligation. Karma doesn't need to shout. It arrives right on time. And when you stand up for yourself, you don't just reclaim justice, you reclaim dignity. Have you ever been betrayed by the people closest to you? Share your story, or tell me what you felt through mine, because every silenced voice deserves to be heard loud and clear. And if you've ever wondered, has anyone ever made it out of the darkness like I did?
Stay.
The next story might be yours.